Yeah, it's time for the Ink and Thread podcast. This podcast discusses design, development, and sourcing of apparel, spotlights fashion trends, and features industry creatives and entrepreneurs. Ink and Thread is the official podcast of Amber Creative. Sit back and relax with your hosts Jeremy Picker and Angelo Montiel.
Welcome back to the Ink and Thread podcast with your host Jeremy Picker and
Angelo Montiel. What's up, guys?
It's been a few weeks since our last main podcast. We just dropped episode 6. It was about our trip to the mall and how we were doing some trend research and seeing what the big retail brands are launching for the spring. You know, it used to be one a quarter. Now I feel like they're doing it twice a quarter. So it gives us some fresh inspiration and perspective that we can use, to create better designs, better merchandise for our customers. But today we're really excited. We have our first real guest. It's been, me and Angelo, which I'm sure you love us already. But as we told you a while back, we want to bring in some industry creatives, people that have been involved in the apparel industry, designers, manufacturing. And today we are stoked to have Josh Kitt, and I will let him introduce himself. And yeah, we're excited to get you to know about him and be able to share some of his wisdom that he's built over the years to our audience. So welcome, Josh. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Angelo. It's great to be here. A little bit about myself. I originally grew up in the north woods of Wisconsin. Spent basically, the majority of my life just interested in the arts in general. Decided to make it my career. Thought it's really hard to become a painter, and I wasn't really all that good at it. So naturally, just kind of fell into the graphic side of things. Been doing that for the last 14 years, and just love making art every day. So
Awesome. So tell our audience your current role in the company you work for, and then I have a few questions about where you're from.
So currently, the last 3.5 years, I've worked for a company out here in Colorado called Geek.
Yep.
And it's a monthly and quarterly subscription box that deals with basically nerd culture, pop culture fandoms, the best parts of my childhood. I get to work on projects and get to design, develop, create everything from packaging to products to the boxes that they go in, you name it. We've pretty much done it. So it's a lot of fun. It's a very rewarding field to be in.
I know.
Sure.
Yeah, I know you were telling me about some of the work he was doing.
Yes.
So what is your position there, or where did you start when you started working at Geek Fuel, and what is your current position?
Sure. Yeah. I started on the senior design side of things, so had to really learn the ropes because, like I said, didn't have really a formal packaging background, so learned how to basically take things apart, put them back together, make products, make boxes that would fit around there, or packaging. Really just had to work my way from the ground up. Got comfortable in that. They threw me some bigger projects, and then eventually got promoted to the role of art director now. So
Awesome. Congrats.
thank you.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you.
Thanks, Angelo. I appreciate that.
So before we get into how you two eventually met, going back to Wisconsin, so I always ask this, even though I pretty much know the answer, that anyone from Wisconsin is a Packers fan. Is that true?
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Green and gold till I'm dead and cold.
Nice. Every summer I used to tour with bands, and we always had a festival in Oshkosh.
Oh yeah.
And so we would drive up from Chicago and then go through the Dales, and I know that's tourist central, but
Sure.
if you ever want to go to the biggest water park in the world, the biggest miniature golf place in the world, go on the ducks in the little what do they call them? Just like the valleys or with the water boats. But so I have a connection with the Packers. So my uncle, he played for Vince Lombardi back in Super Bowl I and II, and all the AFC, I think it was the AFC or the NFC before the NFL even came to existence.
Right.
I think they dominated all the championships like for 8 years in a row.
Oh, yeah.
But I always have a connection with you cheeseheads. So.
We're easy to get along with.
Yeah, for sure.
I also have a connection with the Packers. The Broncos beat them in.
Hey, man.
97
this
Super
is gonna
Bowl.
be a friendly discussion.
Oh yeah.
I just had to. I had to.
That was our first claim to fame.
Mhm.
That was the first championship. So
Yeah, I didn't want to go to school the next day after
bet.
that was rough.
depression. So growing up, you said you're creative. What year did you graduate high school?
2003.
2003. All right. So computers you grew up with computers basically, right?
Right.
I remember, I'm a little older, and so we finally got our first computer when I was in high school, and I think back then there was really, for me and people I knew, there was really no future in design, unless you go to school, and like a lot of things were still digital then, but a lot of hand drawn. And like the film separations, or what was it before that? Litho?
Mm-hmm.
Is that how they used to
so,
separate? But what did you ever have any of your family or people at school discourage you about that field, or tell you to reconsider? If you want to eat.
No, the good thing is my parents were supportive. They knew it wouldn't be an easy route. As soon as you tell your folks you want to go into the arts, they, well, what else do you like? Numbers, maybe banking?
You can do that as a hobby.
Yeah, as a hobby, but, even growing up in school, I think every parent-teacher conference in a class that wasn't art, there would be a discussion about, Josh he's doing well, but his papers, he's doodling, and they would kind of discourage that action. But it was really the only thing that I cared about doing. I was passionate about it, and I just decided once I was going to go to school, I was going to make it work. So.
Real quick, what profession was your father in?
He was a conservation warden, Wisconsin DNR officer, now retired, which is part of why I moved out to Colorado in the first place, just having a love for the outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing kind of his work schedule, and most holidays he would be working, so I was just like, that's not for me. So just kind of made up my mind I was going to go into the arts. Didn't have any family in the arts, so kind of had to do it and learn it on my own. I got to do this. It's not a rebranding, but there's a company in my hometown, Forgotten Fire Winery, shout out, that
We need samples.
they were a small winery growing up in my hometown, and the first employee they hired was a friend of mine, Jake, who for the longest time was like, hey, when we get a chance to rebrand, I got a guy in mind. And it was me, and so I've got a chance to rebrand kind of their wine labels. I think we're up to maybe 13 or 14 labels that we've redone for them. But the last time I was home over winter, I went to the grocery store where I got my first job, and sitting right there in the front is like my wine.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a brand. So that was really fun just to see come full circle. And
Wonderful, wonderful circle moment.
See it in the wild.
Yeah, good to.
You're like those guys that might have picked on me in high school.
Right.
They're drinking what I'm selling.
Wine. got in trouble at the parent-teacher conferences for doodling, and now.
Now that same teacher is.
No, that same teacher.
Out of the model design.
Exactly.
That's awesome. If that winery doesn't have merch, Pub and Grub Creative would be down to help out with that. So you said Illustrator was kind of your lifesaver when you were designing. Do you use Photoshop at all?
Yeah.
You use both?
I would say the majority, I would say of my day is like 70-30, 70 Illustrator, 30% Photoshop. InDesign only when I'm in a pinch.
Are you doing the packaging in Illustrator or in Photoshop, or does it?
It depends on the project. I would say almost every project there's some elements of each going into it. Currently working on something for the 35th anniversary of Alien, and
Nice.
getting all those textures, that grittiness, like the only way you can really achieve that is Photoshop. You know, getting that kind of Geiger feel. You gotta just grunge it up in Photoshop. But I like to lay a lot of the stuff out in Illustrator, so it's kind of a back and forth.
Yeah.
I do have I saw that he's working on something really cool. I don't know if we're allowed to say, but it's a book. You're working on a book, right?
Yes, yeah.
Illustrations.
Yeah, this was kind of a pet project of mine.
Passion project.
Yeah. But we have less and less time to do those nowadays, so I think it's been going on like 6 years. But basically, it was a ABC book. Mr. Cartoony, one of my good friends was like, you have this great style. You should just make a kid's book someday. And I was like, you know what? I should make a kid's book someday. So it's called. Tentative working title is the ABCs of Rock. So basically, it's every letter focuses on a different person that I think is influential in rock and roll or hip hop. It's not just rock. It's kind of
universal.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I'll buy it for my kids when you.
I want a copy. Yeah.
When you finish it.
Yeah, I might be in college by then.
All right. Their kids, right?
Or my kids.
Yeah. Angelo, he got to tap into his cartoony style. He just designed a T-shirt for my oldest is turning 4, and he did a custom T-shirt based on Paw Patrol, which is a really popular kids cartoon, and it says Mighty Ezra, and he made it all cartoony style. I'll show you after the
I'm like,
podcast.
I like this cartoony stuff.
You're good at it.
Cartoony.
Yeah, you're good at it. So I know when you're designing, just to design, whether it's digital or for print, is very different than product designing. So how have you, and I guess you learned a lot at when you were doing apparel, but when you're into packaging and 3D molds, how has it been to deal with these factories? And are you completely involved in kind of the sourcing, or is it you have your design, it gets approved, and then you pass it on, and you don't have a whole lot of say in that? Yeah. So how do you deal with that? As a creative, where you feel like this is awesome, but maybe it's not necessarily production friendly or cost friendly.
Right. There's a lot of back and forth, and I think we drive some of our staff crazy because we honestly shoot for the moon every single time.
Sure.
It's usually,
budget? Who cares about budget?
Budget is the second question I ask. I'm like, no, I got this vision. We need foils. We need spot UVs. We need to just send this thing to 11 every single time.
Yeah.
And usually, we'll then get the budget, and it's like, okay, what can we afford? What bells and whistles can we take away? So that's a bit of back and forth. But ultimately, I feel like sometimes the client doesn't know what they didn't see. So if you have to work within parameters, ultimately, as long as they're happy, I'm happy with it, and usually I get a little extra in there somewhere along the lines.
Overrun.
Yeah.